Alright, so hello everybody, sorry Leon here once again, and the last time we looked at the distributive law and I said that you needed to know the distributive law before you can move on to today's topic, which is factorization. Alright, so if you look at the word factorization, it has the word factor in it. So when it says to factorize an expression, it's basically to split the expression into two factors. And factorization is basically the opposite of expanding. It's the opposite to what you do in the distributive law. In the distributive law, you distribute, but in factorization, we're doing the opposite. We're trying to reverse the distributive law, alright? Good. Alright, so there are many different ways in which you can factorize an expression. Some of those popular ways are, we can factorize by the distributive law. We can use the perfect square method, or we can use a difference of two square method, or we can factorize as a product of two binomials, or we can factorize a quadratic expression. Now I will mainly be focusing on four of those methods that I just listed. I will do a separate video for the last one. Alright, so let's look at this easy example. The instruction says factorize the following expression. Alright, so the main aim of factorizing is to look for a factor or a number or term that is common between these two terms here.
9y and 6x.
Alright, so the first thing that you should do when asked to factorize something is put it in a bracket. Good, after you finish putting it in the bracket, look at the two terms and see what is common. The first thing you should look at is number. There's the two numbers. So this is 9 and this is 6. And we know a factor of the highest common factor between 9 and 6 would be 3. And let's look at the letters now. We have y and x. Those two letters are not common. They don't have any factor because they are different, right? So good. After you're finished pulling out the factor for these two terms, when you pull out the factors, like if you're dividing these two terms by this factor. So 9y divided by 3 and factorize 3 out from 9y is like if you're dividing it, and that will give you 3y minus, when you factor out the 3 from here, is like if you're dividing 6x by 3, that will give you 2x. And that is how you factorize using the distributive law. If you notice, the expression now is split into two factors, one factor here and this factor. And to know if you are correct, when you use a distributive law to distribute this number, you should get back this answer at the top here. So that is the whole idea behind factorization. Alright, so we have this second example and it says to factorize. So once again, we look at the two terms, 10x squared and 4x. And let's look at the numbers. We have 10 and 4. What is the highest factor between 10 and 4? Well, the first thing we got to do is put in bracket, right? Good. What is the highest factor between 10 and 4? And when you think about that, it will be 2. So 2 will be the highest factor. Well, now let's look at the letters. We have x squared here. That means x times x, right? And we have x. So x is common. X is a factor also. So then we take out the x. We factor out the x. And now, let's see what we're left with. When you factor out 2x from this here, you'll be left back with 5x. Because just one x to take out, you still got another x remaining. Plus, when you factor out 2x from here, you're left with 2. Okay, I took out the x, right? And that is the answer for this. That is how you factorize it. Let's see if we're correct. When you expand this, you're supposed to get back at the top here. 2x times 5x will give you 10x squared. 2x times 2 will give you 4x. So that is how you know if you're correct. Alright? Correct. Alright, so let's move on to our second type of factorization that we'll be looking at. And that is the difference of two squares. Alright, so for the difference of two square method, there are two key things that you need to look at the expression to decide whether you can use the difference of two square method or you can use the distributive law method. Now, with the difference of two method, the sign between the two terms, it must be a minus. This must be a minus. If this is a plus, we cannot use this method. And also, the two terms that you have, they must be a perfect square number or a perfect square term. That means when you multiply a term by itself, you will get this number here. Or when you multiply a number by itself, you will get this number here. So those are the two important things that you need to look at before you can use the difference of two square method. Alright, for this method, it's one line. One line will give you the answer. First thing you do is to draw two sets of brackets. And in each bracket, in the first bracket, you will try to find the square root of this number, of this term. Now, what is the square root of 4x squared? What can we multiply by itself to give you 4x? We know if we multiply 2x by 2x, that will give you 4x squared. So the square root of this will be 2x. And you put the 2x here, and then also you put the 2x here. And what is the square root of 9? That will be 3, right? So you put a 3 here, and you put a 3 here. And in one bracket, you put plus, and the other bracket, you put minus. And that is how you do the difference of two square. That is how you factorize using the difference of two square. As simple as that. You find the square root of these two perfect square numbers, and you add them in one bracket and you subtract them in one bracket. And that is basically it. Alright, so we're looking at the final example. The instructions for these two, we got one on this side, let's say is 1 and this is 2. The instruction says factorize. Let's deal with number 1 first. Factorize. They did not tell you which method to use, they just said to say to factorize. Now let's look at this here and see which one of the methods we can use. 25y and 16. Are those two perfect square numbers or perfect square terms? Well, we know 5y times 5y will give you 25y squared, and we know 4 times 4 will give you 16. So that is definitely a perfect square. So once again, for this here, we do one simple step. We put two brackets, and in one bracket we put the square root of 25y squared. That will be 5y. I put 5y here also. And we know the square root of 16 will be what? 4 fours? Yes, so that will be 4. I put 4 here. And in one bracket we add, and the other bracket we subtract, and that is our answer. That is how we factorize this term here. Now let's look at 2. Now 2 is 10x squared plus 25. Is 10x a perfect square? No. Do we have a minus sign? No. So we cannot use the difference of two square method. Over here we have the minus, right? We got to use the distributive law method. So just like in the first example, we put this in bracket and we factor out. You see what is common between these two terms. And we know, let's look at the numbers first. We know what is common between 10 and 25. That is 5. So you put the 5 outside. Do we have any letters in common? No. So this will be 5 open bracket. And take out the 5 from here, you're left with 2x squared plus, we take out the 5 from here, you're left with 5. Let's see if we expand it, we get this. If 5 times this, we get this. Yeah. And the same thing for over here too. If we use the distributive law and expand these two brackets here, you will get back 25 squared minus 16. Alright? So with that, it brings us to the end of this lesson. The next class, we'll be looking at factorization as the product of two binomial expressions and factorizing a quadratic expression. I think I will, anyways, tune in for the next class. Ciao.